Okay, so this is the moment where we start to move into a different mental space. So the first step, I think, always is to bring our attention, our awareness into the body. This is the most effective way to um, interrupt the continuous compulsive flow of thoughts. So just do that then. Bring your mind, bring your attention inside and just notice what's going on in your body. Be aware of the rising and falling of the breathing, the movements of the body, and the sensations. The internal sounds of the body. And as we move into that state of awareness of just gently observing what's going on, we may find the mind is becoming a little calmer. The muscles may begin to relax of themselves. And as we bring more attention to each part of the body, just by being aware of any tension, and just following the movement, the rhythm of the breath with our awareness, then those tense muscles may begin to loosen up. And we can begin to deepen that process by going through a scan of the body, starting at the top of the head, often there's a tautness, a tightness in the temples and the scalp. It may be difficult to consciously relax those muscles, but just by noticing that sensation of tightness there, and just staying with the rhythm of the breath, the muscles may begin to relax a bit. Also, there's often tightness in the muscles around the eyes and the cheeks. Again, just bring awareness to those places. And watch how the feelings and sensations change and move about. See if you can allow the muscles to loosen, or if they just do that by themselves. Muscles of the mouth and jaw also, we may find tension there. They want to move the jaw around a bit to unlock any sense of stuckness there. Scanning down the muscles of the neck. Just adjust the position of your head so that it's well balanced. It should be just tilted very slightly forward so that there's the least strain on the neck muscles. Neck carries quite a lot of tension, and it's often difficult to relax that tension. So just bring awareness to it. Notice any sensations of discomfort. And watch how those sensations subtly change as you observe them. And maybe you'll find some relaxation coming as you bring awareness to it. Probably the shoulders is the place where we carry the most amount of physical tension from the day, any stressful activities or busyness we've had to deal with. So just we'll spend some time here. Notice any tightness in the muscles across the upper chest that attach to the shoulders and across the upper back. Move your shoulders gently up and down, to and fro, around and round, just to bring some looseness to the joint and free up those tense muscles if they are tense. And then let the shoulders fall just very naturally under gravity. Scanning down the arms, letting go of any tightness in all those many muscles in the arms that connect to the hands and fingers. Bringing your attention into the hands, allowing them to just fall very loosely. You can be placing them on your knees or folded in the lap, wherever's comfortable. Coming back to the chest area, allowing the chest to move in and out freely as you breathe. Allowing the stomach to move in and out freely as well. And just observe how they move. Some people breathe mainly from the stomach, some mainly from the chest. Just see how it is for you, or you may be both at the same time, or stomach and then the chest, or the chest and then the stomach. Just watch that and notice how you actually breathe. And allowing the stomach to move in and out very freely and easily without too much tightness in the muscles of the abdominal wall. Move down through the pelvic area. You want to move the small of the back gently to and fro to loosen up the pelvic joints. And continuing down through the legs and feet. To wiggle your toes a little bit to loosen up the muscles of the feet. And feel your connection to the ground. That sense of stability and safety of being planted on the ground, whether you're sitting on a chair, connected through the legs of the chair and through your feet, or whether you're sitting cross-legged. Connected through the cushion, whatever else you're using as a sitting platform. And you can have a sense of having arrived. We are home right now in our body. our original home. Sense of nowhere we need to go, nothing we need to do right now, except just to be here and bring awareness to what is going on in this moment. Just being aware of our breathing. This ever-present motion goes on all the time. If it once stops, we're in trouble. But there it is, breath gently rising and falling. Let's become interested in our breath. And so bringing the attention to a closer focus, either choosing the sensations at the nostrils, or if you're more used to that method, following the in and out movement of the stomach as you breathe. Just identify the object of meditation. This is what I'm meditating on. So you may have an idea of it in your head, in your mind, but make sure that your mind is fully present with the reality of that motion right now in the present moment. Bring your attention to that. Without letting thoughts get in the way. And so we're going to continue for about another 10 minutes, watching the breath. So, and very shortly I'm going to stop talking and we'll just meditate in silence, but I'm going to say a few more things to orient us to the meditation, and then we can go a little deeper perhaps than we did last time. So first of all, it's not too difficult to connect our awareness with that object. We can identify whichever of those two that it is, either the moment by moment sensations of the air passing the entrance to the nose, or else the gentle movement of the abdomen moving to and fro as the breath goes in and out. So just try that once or twice to really, rather than setting the intention to keep your mind on that object for a length of time, just practice once or twice, simply following that movement as closely as possible for one whole breath, all the way in and all the way out. Really like a laser beam, focusing your attention on that one thing, just for that few seconds, so that you're very familiar with that state of clear awareness. So we'll just try that. Just try that 2 or 3 times over the next minute or so, and then you can rest between. So if you're like me, you probably noticed, or you may have noticed, even during that short interval of maybe 5 or 6 seconds while you're taking one breath in and one breath out, although the mind may have stayed with the object, you may have noticed it just beginning to, a thought just beginning to arise, just the beginnings of a thought coming up. So this very, very automatic process, and it's going to happen again and again, and that's fine, and that's just the reality that we're dealing with. So the practice is to observe that. Our practice at the moment is just to notice how the mind functions when we give it this instruction, if you like, to attend to one thing. So in a moment, what we're going to do is we're going to do, as I say, about 10 minutes practice and using the counting, okay, in sets of 7. So my suggestion is follow for 7 breaths, counting 1 to 7, and then repeat, and then a third time, and then after the third repetition, take a rest for a minute or two, just you can move your head around. Don't worry about whether you're focusing on the breathing, but staying in the meditation position generally, not getting up. And then again, a second set of 3 rounds of 7 breaths. And just notice how much of each set of 7 breaths, roughly how much of each set you're able to stay with the attention on the breath, and how much of the time it's going off to other things. Okay. So we'll try that. I'm going to just one more word of advice or suggestion. So often people do this by, they're setting an intention to not allow thoughts to arise. They're focusing more on not having thoughts. And I find it's more effective to focus your intention on staying with that sensation or that movement, okay? And not worrying too much if a thought comes, but as soon as you notice that, just bring the mind back. Because if there's a thought arising at all, then your attention isn't as clear and sharp as it could be. So it's a warning. Okay, it's an information. The focus has drifted off. Bring it back again. So try that and see how much of the time can spend with the mind clearly aware of that object. I'm going to do that for 10 minutes. Okay, and gently relax your concentration. Slowly bring your awareness back into the space. And let's bring the meditation to a close. So, okay, allowing a few moments to come back. Be interesting to hear how that went. So, I mean, I always ask this question when I teach, is how was the meditation? And sometimes people come forward and sometimes they don't. But in this particular course, I want to quite stress that actually. I think, we're going to get much more benefit, each of us, from this if we are willing to open up a little bit and share with each other about what's actually going on when we're meditating, which is something we don't do all that much. And we can learn a lot from each other's experience. So, yeah, an invitation, please be forthcoming. how
Well, I've had better ones. I know you shouldn't compare, but yeah, my mind were wandering, but
Mhm,
it wasn't crazy.
mhm.
So I did manage to calm it, and but it kept wandering off,
It
kept
does.
catching myself. But it helped me feel a bit more settled and a bit calm. When you've just had a bit of a hectic day and you've just got too much on and too much to think about, and you just get to a point where you think, I can't think anymore. I just need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it helped me settle my mind a bit, but it was a little bit active.
Yeah, very good, Mel. And that's how it is, isn't it, for most of us? And I know you've got a very busy life, a lot going on. So, that energy is going to be swirling around in there. So that's what you'll find. And practice does, it does change with practice. It will get easier. I say easier because in a way, it's not like that there's something that we're trying to do really. So we tend to have this attitude that, well, I'm trying to meditate so that my mind isn't distracted at all, doesn't wander off. But I don't know that it's so helpful to really think of that as being the purpose. I mean, if you're doing a specific retreat on shamatha, concentration, then in a way that is your purpose. But here, shamatha is kind of, it's not the only goal of the practice at all. Actually, it's part of it. I mean, we are sort of there is a sense of um, you know making some kind of mental effort to um, keep the mind on the object, um, and that's how we use that in a way as like a laboratory to observe the mind. So a lot of it is about, as we get to know how our mind actually does function, it's very helpful, that we get to understand our own mind better. And as we get to understand it better and be able to notice what it's doing, it helps us to have better control of the mind. And ultimately to, that understanding goes on to that deeper level of sort of wisdom understanding. So, you know, uh, I think we can get too much caught up in thinking, well, that wasn't a very good meditation because my mind was wandering. Actually, that's not the criterion of what's a good meditation at all, actually. The criterion of what's a good meditation, to some extent, is, I mean, I don't know whether there is good and bad meditation, actually, but um, I guess what we're thinking about is, what actually is a benefit, what helps us, you know. And I think if we're clearly aware of what happened, that's a good meditation. if we did a meditation and we don't even know what happened at all, then maybe that's not so beneficial. How do we gain benefit from that? We probably don't really. We do actually, even just from a sitting posture, But it's more like, let's get to know what this thing, our mind, what is it, and what's it doing, and getting to know it. So thank you, Mel. Anything else that you noticed? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
To start at the beginning, I thought the body scan was really nice because I just come from like 2-hour Zoom meeting before,
Right.
so I wasn't really in the mood to meditate. But then going through the body scan very slowly, kind of brought me into it very nice. And then we were doing like focusing quite sharply on the tip of the nose.
Right.
And that's not something I always do. And because I quite often find if I do that, and it happened again, that I kind of get like a bit tense once I like go to a sharp area.
Yeah.
Then like some tension can come in. And especially if there's like some kind of positive feeling arises, like a nice peaceful feeling, then kind of there'll be like some kind of grasping onto that feeling, and then that feeling will kind of fade away, and then there'll be like oscillation.
Very good observation. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah. So just a suggestion there. This is why I did, spend a lot of time on the relaxation, because it's very important. As you say, there is that tendency to, with trying to concentrate, if we're working on concentration, to tense up, and that is the biggest enemy to the concentration, really. So my suggestion is, when you notice that happening, if you're not able to kind of let go of it straight away when you notice it, and it's seeming to be a bit sticky, then actually go back to the relaxation. Stop the meditation per se, and go back into the body scan relaxation, so that your body's nice and relaxed, and then come back. So yeah, a big problem for a lot of people, and I had this problem for many years, was just trying to be too tight with the concentration, and that I suspect, especially for Westerners, actually, our kind of general disposition, the way that we're kind of more driven than Tibetans, and we want to get there. We want to kind of succeed and have great concentration, which is great. But then that kind of tight effort, it causes physical tension, and then we can't concentrate. So it's important to, I think, to do the relaxation at the beginning, and then to come back to it if you need to come back to it again if you're getting tense. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the thing about grasping, that's certainly it's very frustrating, isn't it? Because this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I want when I meditate. It's bliss, and then your mind is kind of the ego is in there, and the bliss is gone. And that's just how it is, isn't it? For a while, yeah. However, that moment of bliss arose because for that moment you were free of ego. So it's an encouraging sign that can happen as we get more used to it. That moment, that 1 or 2 seconds, just get a little bit longer, a little bit more frequent, a little bit more familiar, so that we don't grasp to it, think, oh, amazing, if we're more used to it. If it happened a few times, then it's less of a big deal, it's less of a drama. So then you can stay with it. And that's when, there's more of a payoff from it. But it is often, the grasping is very subtle, and we are That's why, we have to do Buddhist practice for years, because ego grasping is very strong, and it's very, very strongly ingrained in our mind. So we have to kind of get used to it. But yeah, it will get less, and it's really good to notice it. Okay, that's what's happening. So without beating myself up, but yeah, it's normal. It happens to everybody probably. But yeah, okay, so next time, see if I can just keep the focus a little longer, even though there's some bliss arising. Just not get too excited by it and continue the meditation. Just see how, yeah, that kind of stability and calmness is important, and it takes time to develop. Yeah, thanks. Good observation. Okay, Stuart, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Lindsay and I discussed earlier a phenomenon that happened to me tonight, and it doesn't happen in the morning, but it happens sort of, and it didn't happen in your previous course,
Right.
because I think it's something to do with the lighting. The fact that it's dark outside.
Right.
Because I mean, I got very relaxed during that.
Yeah. Good.
Session. And I really enjoy the concentrating on the breathing, because I'd started doing that before I came on this course, and
right.
It was something that I'd obviously reached. Its time had come, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But as I think Lindsay identified this for me actually earlier on, that I was almost drifting off. I could have very easily woken up in about half an hour and found myself half an hour into this course, and
yeah.
but it wasn't actually going to sleep. It was, but there was almost a dream.
Yeah.
A theme. So there's obviously some kind of, because that is something I haven't noticed before.
Right.
There's some kind of phenomena going on there where it's perhaps the consciousness is getting to a certain point. And I didn't lose concentration. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was concentrated, but then I sort of realized that, I'm dreaming, and then sort of came back. Do you know what I mean? It's very interesting.
Yeah, and there is a name for it. It's called mental sinking.
It's what?
Mental sinking. It's called mental sinking.
Mental sinking, okay.
Yeah. So that, if through the practice, the kind of our usual state when we're awake and active is mental excitement. There's lots of busy energy in the mind. So in the meditation, that becomes calmed down. The mind becomes quiet, and it can become sort of fairly still, but a little bit, that the edge of the sharpness of the awareness of the concentration is, the edge of it is dulled. You're in a state which is, it's not, as you say, it's not sleep, but it's going in that direction as opposed to going in the other direction. So the middle way point, the balance is between mental excitement, where your mind is busy and running around, and mental sinking, where it's still but it's not sharp and clear. In the middle, there's a point where it is still and clear. It's calm and clear. That's what you're aiming for. So you're applying all the time in practicing for concentration. This is what we're watching out for, noticing when the mind is a little bit excited or when it's a little bit dull and flat. And if it's a little bit dull and flat, as you say, light is a factor. So, you may want to raise your head a little bit and open your eyes and look out. You may find it helpful to meditate in a situation where there's a bit more light. There's various things that you can do. There's one famous incident. Ajahn Chah, the great Theravada Thai teacher, mentions this, that there was one student who just had this problem that he would always fall asleep in his meditation. Ajahn Tah's solution was, he told him to go meditate in a certain place. So he went meditate in this place. It was on the edge of a well.
Yes, can understand that.
He's nodding off, and then he sees the water there. It cured the problem.
Now, I mean, this never happens in the morning when I'm meditating.
Right.
In the morning.
Interesting, yeah. Yes, so our mind tends to be quite sharp and bright first thing in the morning, and this is a good tip. If you don't do early morning meditation, it is a good idea. Even if it's just 5 minutes. You can set your alarm 5 minutes earlier, even if you can't set it 20 minutes earlier, and seize that moment from just after you get up, kind of splash your face, whatever you need to do. Then the mind is probably in an optimal state for meditating. And in the evening, of course, especially if you've had our dinner or whatever, then it's more prone to fall into that sinking.
I tend to actually meditate when I've actually literally just woken up.
Yeah,
so I'm actually lying. I mean, I think it's the dormation pose, isn't it? The sort of.
I see you do lying down meditation. Yeah. And that's also good. There is more risk, of course, of falling asleep if you are lying down. Other than that, it's a good position because you can relax very well and lying either, like you say, on your side or flat on your back. Those are good. Yeah.
But it was racket feelings that Lindsay was talking about. That's the transactional analysis term where, and perhaps are we reflecting on our practice now? Or do you want to do that later?
Well, I'm just trying to look at the time. About 1 hour. And I'm thinking, what do I want to do? Because I want to move us on a little bit with the text. I did want to explore in some detail, your experience in meditation. I think what we'll do after that, we'll have a bit of a short period for questions, and then come back to how things have been during the week. I'll try it this time. See what.
Can I ask David just one quick question on from what you were talking about mental syncing? Yeah. It came up. It's like that pre-dream-like state where you get lots of images, but you're still in control of being awake, but you're almost dreaming. And it came up with then Mary when we were doing the shamatha course, and she said, "Oh yes, that's so-and-so," and she gave it a name beginning with P, a technical term of that pre-dream-like state. So as well as the mental syncing, it was almost as a little bit of almost a lucid dreaming idea where you were in control of being in between dreaming and being awake, and it can actually hook you in, and you can think, "Oh, I'll stay here because it's quite interesting what comes up." That's the bit I think we were talking about, as well as the sinking and feeling sleepy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I can't think of the name of it.
Was that a technical Buddhist term or a Western?
No, it wasn't a Buddhist term. No, it was probably a sleep term.
Yeah, okay.
But she recognised what it was, and you can get quite drawn to it because it's quite nice to stay in that place because you're aware that you're still awake, but you're dreaming, but you're still almost controlling the thoughts. Yeah. Anyway, that was what we were describing a little bit. That what happens sometimes when we're sleeping.
Cesare knows a bit about lucid dreaming, but I don't know much about it, I'm afraid. So
I don't think it was lucid dreaming as such, but it was where you'd not properly fallen asleep, but you were in that bit where you're falling off and you're starting to get lots of images and anyway. But she if I speak to Ven Mary ever, I'll ask her what the term was because it was quite interesting.
I've just done a Lindsay actually and done a quick while
have you Googled?
Talking, I've done a Google and there's something called hypnagogia.
It was it. Yes, it didn't have a P in it then. Yeah, I think it might have been that.
It might be,
Okay. So that's what we're doing, Stuart.
Thank you.
But I'm sorry, I haven't studied it, so I can't tell you much about it. I mean, I don't know that it's different from the state that you're in if you're doing lucid dreaming. And of course, there are meditation practices using that, but I don't. That's not in my orbit, I'm afraid. Can't comment very usefully on that. Okay, so I'm going to just move us on a bit with the text. Yeah. So last week I asked you to read chapter 1, which is a sort of a bit of a general overview of so it's called The Way of Mindfulness, and let's take it there. What he's referring to is the practice of mindfulness, the mental training in mindfulness as the Buddha taught it. So this term, I think, is now used in an endless variety of ways, and I just want to use it for that. All the others kind of, are derived from that anyway, the different shades of meaning that it's been given. But I feel that this particular book gives one of the clearest, most comprehensive kind of definition and explanation of what mindfulness is in the meaning that it had originally when the Buddha first taught it. So he talks about why he thinks that this particular method of mental training is very important, very significant in our present day world, its value. And I think that's something to keep in mind, although we may be thinking about its value for me, which is absolutely right and proper. It's you're doing the practice for your own benefit, and ultimately, no doubt, to be able to benefit others. But it's also interesting and helpful, I think, to think about how and why it's an important and helpful thing in the world right now. The world is in deep trouble. Humanity is in deep trouble. And Yanapa Nikathera makes a very powerful case for that developing this quality of mindfulness is perhaps one of the most important things that we human beings need to learn to be able to overcome the problems that we're facing, that are human-created problems, mind-created problems. So, people try to solve those problems in all kinds of different ways, but Nyanaponika rightly points out, which is exactly what the Buddha said 2,500 years ago. The root cause of all the problems is within the mind, and therefore we're not going to solve the problems unless we put right the things that where our mind isn't functioning in the best way. So he says, the Buddha's teachings on the mind, the essence of the Buddha's teachings is, he says the mind doctrine is the heart of the Buddha's message. The teachings on the mind are the main thing, most important thing that Buddha taught. And he says, the Buddha message as a doctrine of the mind teaches us three things: to know the mind that is so near to us and yet is so unknown; to shape the mind that is so unwieldy and obstinate and yet may turn so pliant; and to free the mind that is in bondage all over and yet may win freedom here and now. And that statement has a certain quality that I recognize, I feel is present in a lot of the original teachings of the Buddha, that it's very, very simple, it's very, very clear, And it's very clear that it is a fundamentally important thing to understand. Yeah, so I think that particularly about the Four Noble Truths, you know, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. The first teaching essentially was the Four Noble Truths, because the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, is undeniable. Not only is it undeniable that it's true, it's undeniable that it's important. Everybody knows that we do experience suffering and we will need to be free from it. We need to find a way to be free from it. The second noble truth, that, you know, what causes suffering? If we want to be free from it, we need to know what causes it. And the Buddha shows just so clearly how it is not what we usually think, which is things outside us, but what is inside within our own mind that causes that. So this is really what he's saying. Actually, it's the same thing. You know, there's no difference between this teaching and the Four Noble Truths. That in order to be free from suffering, we need to understand how our mind is functioning and how we can change the way that it's operating when it is operating in a way that produces suffering. So that's the, you know, the fundamental purpose of all our practice, clearly, is to understand, get to know the mind, get to know how to shape the mind, how to operate, how to control our mind, and ultimately to gain this state of perfect freedom of mind. And he goes on to say that just as this, the mind doctrine, you know, the Buddha's teaching, the mind, they're the key, the heart of the Buddha's teaching overall. The heart of the teaching on mind is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the key to knowing the mind in an adequate way, to shaping the mind, training the mind, learning to control the mind, and also to gaining this state of complete freedom, of nirvana, if you like. Okay. So this first chapter is explaining in general terms what is meant by mindfulness, the way that he understands it. And basically, it's just simply paying attention, right? That's what we're talking about. So we're always told this, even as a small child, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Yeah. And it's a good piece of advice. We should, and we don't. You know, we often aren't doing things without paying attention to what we're doing, or we're going somewhere without paying attention to where we're going or what's happening. You know, we walk through life often in a daydream, don't we? You know, there is this interior monologue going on, there's dramas that are happening in our mind while life is passing us by. You know, we're living in the past or living in the future. We're not fully present, and we're not noticing what's really going on. So this is what's being referred to then as mindfulness. This is what we're training in. Training ourselves to have our attention under control and directed towards what's most beneficial at any one time, which is very often, or usually, but certainly very often, is what's happening in the present moment. But if we are needing to pay attention to events in the past or making plans for the future, etc., then to do so in an appropriate way. Okay. So the second chapter talks about those two aspects. Yeah, mindfulness and clear comprehension. Yeah, actually, that phrase, mindfulness and clear comprehension, he says, you know, it's often used as a compound term. And I think it's the one in, you know, in Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. The fifth chapter, which is the chapter on moral discipline, is actually called, you know, different translations, but something like, you know, training in mindfulness and discriminating alertness, or alertness or discriminating alertness. Okay, and I think it's the same term as here translated as clear comprehension. Okay, so two aspects. But here, when it's referring to mindfulness and clear comprehension, the first part of that, what's being specifically referred to there as mindfulness, is what he here in this chapter he defines as bare attention. So this is the mental factor of just noticing what is present right now. And that is the object of the formal training, the formal practice, the sitting meditation practice that we're doing. Although, it could be seen as a practice of concentration on the breathing, and it can be essentially the same practice can be done as part of the training in shamatha, in concentration. Here, that's not the emphasis and that's not the main purpose. The main purpose is we use that activity of focusing the mind on the breathing as a kind of anchor, if you like, for our awareness. But the main thing that we're aiming at is simply to be aware of what's occurring from one moment to the next. So actually, if your mind wanders off on a train of thought and you're not watching the breath, but you are aware of that train of thought arising and one thought leading to another, you haven't left the meditation. Okay? The primary aim of the meditation is to be aware of whatever is happening in each moment. So one of the instructions, I think I said this last week, that if you've got a thought going on that is really quite sort of powerful, intense, and compulsive, if you like, as Lindsay was describing, then one thing you can do, if it's really difficult to bring the mind back to the breathing, is just to switch. Say, okay, well, I'm going to look at the thought, and that's completely valid. Okay. There is another variation of this practice where you don't focus on the breathing and you just register the thoughts as they come up. Not only thoughts, but also, notice physical sensations or sounds, internal and external sounds, just whatever is happening in the stream of consciousness. It's a very important form of meditation, actually. And it's closely related to what we're doing. It's really not, it's not so much a different meditation as just in this one, there's just this extra element that in order to kind of have a sort of, to stop the mind from just kind of going all over the place at random, we keep our attention to the breathing as a kind of focal point. But the main thing that we're aiming to do in the meditation, the real practice, is this bare attention, is just registering what is occurring. Okay, so if the mind's a bit distracted, we notice, the mind is distracted, and we don't want to go into an analysis of that and try to sort of, or necessarily to change it. Okay, mind is distracted. But by noticing it, it will change. So if you have mental excitement, instead of making some kind of effort to calm that excitement down, which can be very difficult to do, I mean, we can use certain techniques like relaxation, that's fine, but actually just by noticing that it's occurring, it will automatically calm it down. Or if we notice that mental sinking is occurring, so our awareness is becoming somewhat dull and fuzzy, when we notice that, it will sharpen up by itself. We don't have to make some special effort to do that. So this practice of kind of continually reminding yourself to notice what is occurring in the mind has this built-in tendency to keep the mind sort of coming back to a state of meditative awareness and clarity, which is kind of desirable. One of the things that we want to do. So it's more difficult than you might think to be aware of what's happening in the mind. So when we did, and some of you may have noticed, when the concentration is quite good, so you think, oh well, I've been following the breath for 3 whole breaths and it hasn't wandered off. And of course, then it has as soon as you have that thought. Anyway, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, so you notice that's occurred, right? You may realize that for some of that time, although your mind was on the breath all the time throughout, one whole breath in and out, but there wasn't a great amount of detail that you noticed. Whereas, maybe on the first breath, maybe then the third breath, that detail wasn't there so much, and it was a more just like a very rather general, this is, there's kind of, this air is coming in for a few seconds, it's going out for a few seconds. Whereas perhaps on the first breath, you were noticing many subtle changes happening during that 1 or 2 seconds as you're breathing in. So that's just an example. But, the mental processes that are going on, we also notice those, and those can become, we can notice increasingly finer details of those mental processes and how they arise and how they change and how they disappear or transform into something else. And as we begin to develop that more clear awareness of the fine detail of what's happening in our mind, it assists us, it enables us to have better control of that mind. We more quickly notice when our attention is wandering away, bring it back, notice subtler and subtler distractions that are occurring. There is a limit to how far we can go in this if we're just doing it as a daily practice and we're otherwise living a normal life. In order to get really into that very, very fine detail so that the mind is extremely clear and sharp, we may need to do retreat. And that might be more connected with development of the kind of clarity that's associated with concentration. I'm not sure if there's a corresponding limit to how well we can develop mindfulness without going into retreat. I don't know if he says it. He may think something about that. Yeah, I mean, he does say that in order to really become, I hesitate to use the word proficient. I don't, but for that quality of mindfulness to develop to its full potential, that yes, we will probably need, or we will need, to do periods of sustained practice in a retreat setting. One of the things about this, the kind of this pandemic situation is that we can, or many of us anyway, maybe not everybody here, but many of us are in a situation where we can have something more like a retreat conditions. Okay, we might have to do a few things on Zoom or whatever. Some of us may be working. Then it's more difficult. Or have family, it's more difficult. But because we are restricted in this way and we're having to be at home a lot of the time, it can be, for some, it can be quite conducive. So I would say use the opportunity if it is an opportunity for you. So I'm going to stop talking in a minute. because, basically because I'm going to ask you to read the rest of this section for next week, and really try to get a clear understanding of this notion of bare attention and what it is, and see if you can begin to practice it more, both in the meditation itself and in daily life. So, we can't do it when in the middle of an emergency, but a lot of the time in our lives, there are quieter moments where we have the opportunity, okay, now I'm going to practice this, and just kind of, the first thing to do is to bring awareness into the body. Okay, breathing, and if you're walking, mindful awareness of how you're walking and the things around you. So rather than being dominated by the stories in your head, to be right there in the present moment. I strongly suggest practicing when you're eating, actually. See if you can really fully experience each mouthful of the food. Because it deserves that. It deserves to be fully experienced. And it's a very good part of the training. It's very challenging, actually, to try to, eat mindfully without, being lost in the stories in your mind while you're eating, and not even notice the food, really, the flavors of the food, and, being aware of what it is, and so on. So things like that, just everyday activities, doing the washing up, which you'll have to do after you've eaten your food. Yeah. Okay, here's an opportunity. So rather than doing what I normally would do, which is practicing it with 50% of my attention on the washing up and 50% on whatever it is I'm about to do next, or what somebody said earlier in the day, or whatever, but really, to, as much as possible, just have your attention directed to what's right in front of you. And I think you'll find that it's, it's rewarding to bring that more in. So hopefully, then it becomes something that you want to do more. Anyway, I think that's enough of me talking. So we'll have a bit of time for questions, and then come back to exploring practice as it's been during the week. So anybody, any questions about any of that, or about anything else connected with what was in the book, or with the kind of, idea of mindfulness? Is it making sense? Is the book, has everybody got the book? First question. Raise your hand if you've got a copy of the book. Mel hasn't. Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
I will get one. I just don't have time.
No worries. Okay.
I'll email Lynn and I'll go down and pick one up, because I saw the email that she's got. So as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, oh God, I need to make an appointment to get the book.
It's not a long book, but so I am only giving a fairly small amount of reading each week. I know some people find it very difficult to find any time for reading, and I have said it's really worth reading it very slowly and carefully. But I'm only setting like a few, 10 pages or something. It's not a massive amount. How much is it going to be? It's a bit more than that, but.
So David, can I just check, which was the bit which bit did you want us to continue with just beyond chapter 1, the next part, was it?
The first half of chapter 2. So there's 2 parts to it.
Got you. Yeah.
Comprehension. So in my copy, it's page 30 to page 45, middle page 45. So, what I recommend is read a couple of pages a day.
Yeah.
will take you maybe 5 minutes, to read it slowly and carefully and think about it. And so that's another little bit of your practice. So you put your meditation 10 to 20 minutes. You've got this 5 minutes of reading. And then just during the day, a minute or 2 minutes of just, okay, I've got a moment here where I could just practice mindfulness. I'll just practice, be aware of your breathing and your body, let your body relax, just take a minute or two. Or just when you're walking, do a bit of mindful walking. So a few times during the day, 2 or 3 minutes, or a little bit longer if you can, if you want to, if you have your afternoon lockdown walk, whatever, you can do some mindfulness practice there. But basically that's what I'm recommending. 10 minutes plus meditation, 5 minutes plus reading, and then those couple of 2 or 3 minutes at a time, a few times during the day. Should be possible. And then very important, connect with your buddy, your partner. So was it Daniel and Mel? Were you partnered up? Yeah. And you got together. Did you manage to get together?
Daniel sent me an email.
Right.
So we'll swap numbers and we'll start doing it now.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm rubbish.
No, Mel, I mean, I know that it's challenging for you because you have got an extremely busy, complex life. And I think this is good medicine for you, so don't worry if you slip now and again. It's very understandable, but I can see your willingness there. Hang in there, and yeah, and it's I think it's really good to have support, support one another. It's a very nice thing to do, and it's very helpful. So yeah, do that if you can. Okay.
I think once we start reading, as I say, we just got chapter 1, and it's only short actually, isn't it? It's only 17 pages in the new copy.
What is that?
So
no.
Is that about?
Well, my copy it's 11 pages, so yours must be very different.
I tell you what, page 5 made me smile, David. And obviously it's written in 1954. Is that right? When he's talking about.
You've got a different copy to me.
Yeah, it's the 2014 is the latest one.
Okay.
But obviously it's the same text. It's just probably there's a forward or something that's changed But yeah, it was just when he talks about the very much present silly chatter of society, newspapers and radio. So he's talking about 1954, and that really made me smile. And I thought, what would he make of what we're like now?
Okay.
What the world's like now in comparison.
So I'm just looking to make sure that.
Do you see that bit, Stuart?
I thought it was extremely contemporary.
Yeah.
Lots of the themes, political themes that he was talking about.
Exactly.
Today.
As though it could be today. Yeah. But so much more extreme now if he was commenting on it now. Yeah. But it's obviously just coming after the end of the Second World War, his comments about all of that were, it's really well written. Easy to read.
It's extremely well written, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, I've enjoyed the first chapter, and like you say, there's a lot of the book that is the actual text. So, and there's lots of notes as well. So the actual book is not that big. It feels big, but it's not, is it? The actual, Yeah,
so we will go there as well because the second part of the book is the sutra, and we will be looking at the sutra, and the sutra itself. I mean, it really it's an absolute jewel. I think it's one to get to know very well. It's very inspiring and very profound. So we'll look at that as well.
Okay. I think it'll help with it'd be nice when we get together in pairs during the week to see how we're going with the book as well, and bring that into the discussion.
That's very point, Lindsay. Yeah, do that. Talk about that as well as about your practice, about the finding in the book and questions that you've got, and bring those questions into the class. And yes, so any other questions about the theory, the content, the book, before we move on to how's your week been? Any comments on that, on what came up during your, so it was only Stuart and Lindsay, you've already talked about your conversation, so, well, I don't know if there's anything else to add about that, but so really it's, let's just look at, what did you notice during your practice during the week? What, you know, did you have any kind of significant insights that helped you to feel, you know, understanding the practice better, or getting some more benefit from it? Was there anything that you struggled with, anything that you weren't clear about, any questions that came up? Or just how was it? So we're all waiting for each other again then.
On that first week,
Yeah.
you know, I missed last week because I was at a meeting, but like that first week I felt very committed and very like energized, and but I feel like last week I've just felt exhausted, and I feel like, well, when I feel like that I should like make more effort. I just don't have energy. I've been too tired, and I can't be bothered. I'm not beating myself up. I'm just like accepting what I'm feeling.
Yeah. No, it's really important. As I said, you know, it's really important not to push ourselves too much. I would experiment a bit with it, because it depends on, you know, if I'm feeling tired, I don't want to do it. Now, there's two variations on that, right? Two slightly different states. And I think you'll find it by experiment. Sometimes, if you try the meditation, you'll, you know, it'll liven you up, and you'll be glad you did it. And sometimes you really are exhausted, and you know, you're just trying to push yourself and it doesn't work. And you know pretty quickly which of those two is the case, you know. After a couple of minutes, you'll either start to revive a bit and say, oh, actually, I'm all right, I can do it, you know. Or it'll just be like, you know, wading through mud, and then there's no point. So the thing to do then is to, you know, to rest. And resting is a skill, by the way, you know. So sometimes the relaxation, and you can do the same thing lying down, you know. So this, even though you say, okay, I'm too tired to sit up and concentrate on meditation, so I'll lie down and I'll do the relaxation part, you know, and you then fall asleep, and that's fine, you know.
That's what I do when I'm like that. I put like some on Insight Timer or a different app, and just have relaxing music and just let it. So I kind of feel like I'm doing something, but not kind of. I don't know, but because I used to beat myself up before.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
I don't now, and I just think, well, you know, I'll get my energy back, and then I'll be able to do it. But for now, I just need to.
Yeah. So this is something we really kind of have to work on a lot, I think, as meditators in a society where life is very busy. You know, and I know your life's probably busier than most, but we all have this of managing our energy and our rest. You know, and rest is important. As I say, it's a skill, and you know, if that's working well for you, that's great. But I would say it's not necessarily just a matter of lying down, not just a matter of going to, because we can be asleep and our body and mind can be very tense while we're sleeping, you know, and we don't get good quality sleep. So practicing relaxation before you go to sleep is a good idea, and practicing it in a focused way is a good idea. Really, although you're relaxing, but actually you're bringing quite a high level of awareness and attention into your body to notice where the muscles are tense and allowing them to relax and so on, go through a systematic body scan. So if your app or your, I was going to say your tape, that's dating me as well, it's not your tape, whatever it is, your recorded meditation that you're using, is helping you to have that, aware practice of consciously relaxing. That's very good. If it isn't like that, and it's just like, the gentle music, and it may relax you anyway, but I think you get better relaxation if you're bringing awareness to it rather than just completely passive kind of relaxation. They're both useful, The important thing is we need, if we want to rest properly, we need to relax in order to do it. We can go to sleep and not be rested when we get up. If there's tension in our mind when we go to sleep and tension in our body, it may just be going on through the night. So especially for you, Mel, I think, rest is a key factor, and you have to make a judgment at any given time. Well, is the best thing for me to be doing now to meditate or to rest? I mean, I found this, at the beginning of the week. I'd just done this retreat with Paul at Chichester, which was wonderful, and there was a lot of stuff on relaxation. But it was kind of just taking me to the next stage of the Tantra practice, and I'm doing quite a lot at the moment. And I was getting up very early and doing several tantric practices during the day and doing other things in my compassion training and my own teaching and other stuff. And I was, this is getting heavy going. And I realized, and I really, put the brakes on and had a day where I did very little. And then the next day I also got up considerably later than I normally would. And, we have to listen to our bodies, and it will tell us when we really do need to rest. We can go too much the other way, and get into the habit of just sleeping all the time and think, oh, why haven't I got any energy? Well, maybe then we need to give ourselves a little bit of the boot up the bum and wake ourselves up. But it's finding that balance, which is, constantly shifting, isn't it? Depending on our activities and what our body's doing and our biorhythms and all of that. So just, again, it's about, awareness, isn't it? Listening to our bodies and learning to respond in the right way. Yes, Stuart.
I don't know whether this would help anybody else, but I mean, the Jamlang midday meditation, if you're free around 12:30, I actually find, and I mean, there are groups that are around first thing in the morning. You can find online people to meditate.
We had one. I thought we had morning prayers. Has that stopped now?
No, there is morning prayer, but I was thinking about specifically meditation.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
But the midday one, I find, I'm just about ready to meditate at lunchtime.
Great.
Just before lunch. So
good idea.
Anyway,
very good idea, I think.
Throw that in as a
better than after lunch. Yeah, it is a good time. Yeah, it's a recommendation there, because even if you're working, if you've got your lunch break, you can do 5 minutes, can't you? Even if you've got a half an hour lunch break, you could still do 5 minutes and have 25 minutes to eat your sandwich.
But I think turning up with other people there. Yeah. I mean, I've used the Insight Timer, and I really liked it for a while. And I like collecting the badges and all that kind of thing. But eventually, I gave it up. Whereas if you turn up with other people, it's like a commitment. Really, it's not a commitment, but it's like
yeah. There's certainly a difference. That's very true. Yeah. Okay. So, any other experiences during the week or questions that came up? How's it gone? I'm very keen to know, how it's gone for you during the week, as well as during the meditation at the beginning. So, yeah, Daniel.
I feel like I've had a bit of like a dichotomy, because I feel like on the one hand, especially since last weekend, I think my meditation's been going quite well. Like, just like gradually going well, and like I was just realized something about just like receiving or like listening to the body just a bit more, rather than thinking about the body or like trying to adjust the posture. So that was quite nice. But also on the other hand, I've been like outside of meditation procrastinating quite a lot.
Okay.
And I've noticed that's just like gradually increasing my like stress levels and like seeping into the meditation as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So question about that. Do you think it's possible that the practice and the teachings have been helping you to notice a bit more clearly what's going on with this procrastination? Are you noticing things about how that occurs that you might not have noticed before? Well, you're noticing that it's happening, obviously.
Yeah, I'm noticing that it's happening.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of often the case, in that it's easy to notice that it's happening, that I'm procrastinating or I'm doing something that I think is not the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But then there's like a step between noticing that and then taking the action.
Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest, Daniel, is, use this as part of the practice. So get interested in the procrastination. What tends to make that happen? What are the things that tend to cause it to happen? What's going on in your mind at the time that that is associated with it? So rather than it's just like, oh, I'm procrastinating, and you may sort of, I'll try not to, and then then you find yourself doing it again, but just to observe it, get interested in it. What's really going on here? And this is what the practice is. The practice is about noticing, getting more familiar with how our mind operates all the time. So this can be part of the practice. And that, as he says in the book, just by bringing awareness to that problem, if you call it a problem, bringing awareness to it is usually very much more of an effect. I think I've frozen, my internet's frozen here. Have I come back? Are you there? Okay. Yeah. Did you get that, Daniel? That just noticing it, just observing it, can often be more effective in changing it than trying to change it with willpower. That often just doesn't work at all. Whereas becoming more clear about what exactly is going on and beginning to understand why it's happening, that can really sometimes free you completely from a pattern that's not helpful. So anyway, be interesting to see. You can tell us next week.
Next week, see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we're coming towards the end. Any more observations from the week? Maybe just take one more and then we'll do a brief meditation and dedication. Anyone?
Well, I'll just say one last thing, David. Yeah. I've actually started to at 11:30 started to do walking meditation. So I've set an appointment for myself to do that, and I've found that really useful.
Oh yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I'm definitely recommending do that if you can. I'm going to recommend to do it at least once during the week for at least 10 minutes of a walking meditation, just to experience that. But more if you can, great if you can do it daily, fantastic. But it is a really good practice. Often people find, and I find very often, my concentration is better with walking meditation than with sitting meditation. So, if you're struggling, it may be something that might help. Okay, so Checking where we are in terms of time. I'm going to ask for first two people to put your hand up. I'll meet with you this week. Okay. So nobody's putting their hand up. Nobody wants to meet with me. I'll pick on you in that case. Okay, well, then it's going to be Daniel and Lindsay this week, and I'll email you, and we set up a time. Okay. So we've got a few minutes left. What else did I want to say? I think I've said most of it. So just a reminder to remember about relaxation and rest. Those are important. Maybe it's three R's then: rest, relaxation, and regularity. So, you know, at least the 10 minutes. And you can do it, that daily 10 minutes, you can do as a walking meditation. I'm fine with that. It doesn't have to be sitting, but either sitting or walking at least 10 minutes and meditating, you know, following the breath. Okay. If you are only doing 10 minutes, then I would say 5 minutes relaxation and 5 minutes focusing. Okay. Probably even doing 20 minutes, I would say you could perfectly well do 10 minutes relaxation and 10 minutes focusing. But obviously, you know, when you feel, yes, I'm nicely relaxed now, and you naturally wanting to move into the concentration, that's fine. But do make sure that you know, spend enough time to get properly relaxed. I think that's about it in terms of what to do. Yeah. Any last burning questions before we do our few minutes settling the mind and dedicate? Okay. So, and it's that switch from possibly it's going to be from left brain to right brain awareness, isn't it? And we start with the body. Just be aware of how you're sitting, contact of your body on the chair and on the floor, the cushion, whatever you're sitting on. Just moving around until you get into a good sitting position. Take a couple of deep breaths to help with getting back into the relaxation. And just rest in the stillness and following the breath for a couple of minutes. So this stillness that we can find through this practice of bringing awareness to the body and to the breathing. The stillness we can think of as our inner refuge. That still, lucid awareness that we find when we're able to let go of the constant stream of thoughts. Connects us with the deep peace that is always present as a potential within the mind. Where ultimately we can find real freedom. So in practicing this evening, through the week, and in the practices that we are entering into, we're creating causes for our own liberation from suffering, laying the foundation ultimately for enlightenment. So we can take joy in this. We spent our time in a very constructive way. Created a great deal of positive potential. If there's anything that you feel you want to dedicate that positive energy towards, be it a friend who is in trouble or sick, someone who's died, peace in the world, then please bring that thought into your mind and make that wish. Especially, of course, may this positive potential become a cause to myself and all living beings to become completely free from suffering and achieve the highest enlightenment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone, and have a great week. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Okay.